When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Pick and Save. For mouth-watering meals and appetizing ingredients. And no matter what tasty choice you make, our low prices add up to big savings. Plus, you get over $600 in digital coupons each week and up to $2 off per gallon at the pump in points. At Pick and Save, you always get big flavors and big savings. Pick and Save. Fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Why does making friends as an adult feel so
What
hard?
should I wear on a first date?
What the hell is a form? But that
Why
hookup
is
was
buying my
not
first
good.
home
What
so
do I want my
frustrating?
life to look like in 5 years?
We want to know too.
Since 2012, The Everygirl has been an online destination to help women around the world achieve the life of their dreams. Now, we're excited to bring you the same inspiring content with the Everygirl podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Everygirl podcast. We are back with our Ask the Everygirl segment where you submit a question and we give you some advice. I am so happy today because I am back with McKenna. You guys loved McKenna when you heard her last month on one of our Ask the Everygirl episodes, and she's back for more. McKenna, welcome back. I'm so excited.
Oh my God, thank you. I was just saying to Josie, it is a treat whenever she slides into my Slack and being like, oh, do you want to talk? I'm like, yes, of course. I want to gab and yap for an hour. So I'm so excited to be back.
You're like,
one time last time.
Tell me what is a better dream job than being a professional yapper?
It's 100% the dream. Who would have known that you and I yapping on a bus for 3 hours would have actually got me there? So thank you for having me.
I know. If anyone didn't listen to the last episode with McKenna, we talk about when we were on an all-staff retreat, me and McKenna chatted for hours in the front, and I said, get this girl a mic, get her on the podcast. So you can go listen to that story in that episode. All right. Here's this week's question. Okay. This listener writes in, first of all, I'm a huge fan of the pod. Thank you so much. I have an Ask the Everygirl question for you. Is there a graceful way to make sure you're politically aligned with someone before the first date? In a climate like this, I don't want to go on a date, let alone several, only to find out that he doesn't think I should have rights. Sincerely, an Everygirl who keeps accidentally attracting conservatives. How amazing.
Obsessed with that question, but I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about that. Diva, it'll get better.
What a bummer. So I want to know your thoughts. This is such an interesting topic, like the intersect between dating and politics. And it's obviously especially relevant right now. I feel like obviously in years past, it was kind of like, okay, we can have different beliefs about politics, right? And now it's not just about politics, it's about values. It's not about this is our thoughts about the economy. It is about the way that you value other human beings. It's your empathy. It's your belief about women's rights. So like this has become so much more of a thing, obviously, in Trump's America. Politics has to be part of dating. So I want to know like your thoughts in general, like how you see politics, whether it's like in the zeitgeist with your friends, like how are politics and dating intersecting right now?
I'm like, how are they not intersecting right now? I feel like that question that she wrote in is like, oh, I don't want to go on several dates with someone who just to find out that they don't think I should have rights. That is like the perfect way to sum it up. Particularly like my friends and I, we all consider ourselves to be very political people. And it's like very much in our like cultural zeitgeist and stuff. So generally speaking, I think I lean a little bit more to the extreme side of the spectrum in terms of I could never date someone that I don't politically align with. But for the sake of this question, I'll try to be a bit more middle ground like on it. But I agree with everything you just said. I think that particularly in Trump's America and how outwardly negative and hateful pretty much everything is at that point, I think it's impossible to not take that into consideration. And I think to still have the approach of we just don't talk politics or like we don't really align politically, but we can agree to disagree. There's a lot of deeper layers to that. Like you were saying, it's not just politics, it's morals, it's human decency, it's values, it's caring about other people. And so for someone to lean differently than you or to just even identify as like apolitical or like, I don't like to talk politics, like it's not just politics. It's about caring about other people. And if you're somebody who's looking for like a partner or someone to date or whatever that you want to last with and align with, those things need to be brought up. It's hard for me to see a world where I don't politically align with the person I'm with, if that makes sense.
No, it is really interesting because I feel like years ago, some people were political and some people were not very politically engaged. And so you saying like, I'm not really into politics, or I'm independent, or I'm apolitical, that was fine years ago.
Yeah.
Now saying I'm apolitical or I don't really get into politics actually means something very different. It means that I'm choosing not to care about these huge, important problems that are affecting us as women, that are affecting people of color. So you're choosing not to be engaged. That means something so different than it meant years ago. So I think that's a good point of like, it's not even just about attracting conservatives. That's a problem that we're going to get into, but it's also being apolitical in 2025 is also a red flag.
Huge red flag. I think one of the biggest positions of privilege that a person can be in is to identify as not being political, or like, oh, I just don't really like look into that stuff. That shows me that you do not use your position of privilege for good. And that is a huge red flag, politics aside. Like, and that's just morally not very sound. So I think it's just the intersection of morals, like we've been saying. It's the Venn diagram of politics and morals and values is a perfect circle at this point. And so I think it's impossible to talk about one and not talk about the other. Before Trump's America, like when Trump first got elected, I was 15. So obviously it was not political at that time, but I could imagine that beforehand it was a lot easier to, like you were saying, take the stance of like, oh, it's okay if we don't align politically or whatever, but not necessarily anymore.
Human rights are on the line. So
exactly.
It's a very different experience in today's world. I actually kind of see it as almost like a positive thing with dating, because whereas before, if someone was like, I'm apolitical or I vote for a different party than you do, it was like, okay. And then you have to do more to suss out, are they an empathetic person? Are they kind? Do they have my values? Now it's kind of this easy thing where you can just put right on your dating profile, like, if you don't agree with me having my fundamental rights, if you are not pro-choice, I don't want to see you. It kind of is a good filter to weed out misogyny, homophobia, racism. Like, it kind of is a good filter.
No, totally. And I think that specifically with the question that this listener submitted of like, oh, how do I vet people out even prior to a first date? I feel like because we are politically in such like an extreme climate, it makes it easier to do that. And like, I think she worded it as like in a graceful way. I don't think there needs to be grace about it, like at all. Like, you don't need to come out guns blazing if you don't want to. But even if assuming it's someone from a dating app and you're like chatting a bit before a date, to kind of just phrase it as, before we go on a date, there's one part of my vetting process, like, haha, you kind of like make it a joke and be like, who did you vote for? And I feel like that's not going to catch a lot of people off guard in this political climate. I think that alone gives you the green light to just be upfront. And the right person will not get offended or like be sensitive about it at all. They'll be like, oh, no, don't worry, I didn't, or whatever. And if somebody is a little bit like, why would you ask me that? You're good. You're saving your time. So be upfront. Don't be graceful.
If someone does align, they would appreciate that you did that. Like, if I was talking to someone and deciding if I wanted to go out with them and they're like, hey, just want to check, did you vote Trump in 2024? I'd be like, thank you so much for checking. Yeah. And then again, like you said, if they don't align, bye. Like, you save time. Yeah.
Get out of there.
Yeah. So like, how would you word it? Would you word it like, hey, before we meet up, just want to check in?
Just want to touch base.
Just want to touch base.
I would probably word it as, not that it's a lighthearted topic at all, but I would probably do it in a more lighthearted way. Like I was saying, kind of like in the exchange of, okay, if you were deciding you wanted to go on a date, you're like, oh, should we go grab a drink? In that phase of the conversation, I would maybe word it in a way of like, before we go on a date, I have one more step of my vetting process, if that's okay with you. Like, kind of sarcastic a little bit. Who did you vote for? Or like, did you vote for Trump? Or even like, kind of just be a little funny with it and be like, do you think women deserve rights?
Did you vote for my rights, or did you vote for me to take away my rights?
Yeah,
like,
I think
did you answer the question?
Yeah, I think it's a bit more comfortable to do it in a more surface level humor approach. Like, you're not kidding, but it's not coming across as like super aggressive by any means. We're like, hey, one more thing before we seal the deal. Haha. And depending on how they react, if they're like, what? I don't want to talk about that or whatever, then unmatch, get out of there. Absolutely. But
Yeah.
I would just kind of be forward, but in like a satirical way, because you'll get the answer regardless without making it a big, serious conversation, because you haven't even met the person yet. So it doesn't need to be a huge, like, turn into like a political debate. I don't know if every dating app has this, but when I was on Hinge, there's a million things that you can include on your profile. Like, do you drink? Do you smoke? Do you want kids? One of the only things I had on there was I put that I was liberal. And that usually filtered out people pretty decently. So that's something that you can do that's very much in your control. It's not foolproof, but definitely if there is an option on whatever app you use, put that you're liberal. Yeah.
I feel like there's also got to be a place, like even just saying pro-choice is non-negotiable. Can't you just be upfront with that on your dating profile? Like, it's like, I want someone who wants a relationship and I want someone who voted pro-choice. It just, you can be so upfront about it, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's just like including it in your bio or whatever, if you want to lead with that because that's important to you, as you should feel 100% entitled to do, that's going to filter out a lot of the people that you don't want to engage with.
Totally. Yeah. Including stuff in your prompts. Exactly like you said, like, oh, I want someone who I can be in a relationship with and who believes in a woman's right to choose. Like I said, I don't use like a ton of different dating apps. So when I was using Hinge, those prompts are like very malleable and there are ways to incorporate it. But like I said, that's not going to filter out everybody, but it's a pretty good thing that you can control that minimizes the pool for sure. But then I think once it gets to a conversation type of situation where like you're messaging back and forth on the app, to just sort of be a little bit more upfront in that scenario, that's totally okay. And if it still slips through the cracks where you somehow still end up on a date with this person, I think definitely find a way to bring it up on the first date. Because I think multiple dates like this person wrote in, I would be very, very frustrated. So definitely find a way to incorporate it into conversation on the first date to save yourself some time. And there's a million ways you can do that. You can be upfront or just tell a story and mention that you have queer friends or just mention who you voted for or something like that. And you'll be able to read a vibe like pretty quickly.
Yeah. Or even making a comment like, so scary in 2025 to be a woman, or, you know, like saying something like that to gauge their reaction. Because I do feel like a lot of people, sadly, have been programmed to think that talking about politics is impolite or it makes you unlikable. So for a lot of people, it's really hard to get past that blockage to feel comfortable enough to say up front, who did you vote for? This is what I want. So if you're in that position where you feel uncomfortable, I feel like just saying something just to gauge their reaction. What do you mean it's scary right now? This is the best our country's ever been. Like, you're gauging their reaction and that will tell you a lot. Or even just saying, you know, because the first things you talk about are like, this is what I do for my job. This is what I'm passionate about. That's what you normally start talking about. So you could even just say, I'm really passionate about social issues. I'm really passionate about gender equality. I'm really passionate about queer rights. You can say just what you're passionate about and then be like, what are some things that you care about? And if they engage with empathy, if they get defensive, if they're weirded out, that tells you everything. So you can also bring up something that you care about and just gauge their reaction if you don't feel comfortable straight up asking them or telling them your non-negotiables.
Totally. More like reading a vibe rather than needing a direct answer to a question. But as long as you have that at the forefront of your mind of like, okay, I need to get this figured out, you will be able to figure out a way to like organically weave it into conversation. If it gets to the point where you are on a first date and you still don't really know what their vibe with it all is, it'll happen in conversation. I like that you said like just talking about like your passions or things that you care about. It will naturally come up, especially in today's political climax. It's pretty impossible to ignore, especially as a woman going on a date with a man. And like I said, if you end up on the date, it's not the end of the world. You just know that you'll never see them again, and that's fine. Have them pay for your drink and go home like he owes you.
There should be an app that's like, alert the other girls that this man is conservative.
Oh my gosh. That could actually...
That would save lives.
Save lives. Save a lot of time and save lives and save energy. That's a great idea. But
I know.
I don't know. I think that it sucks. I feel like especially I live in one of the most liberal cities in America, and I know, Josie, you're in LA. So I feel like that kind of helps a little bit, at least in my experience. My probability of running into someone who doesn't align with me politically is pretty low. It's like, you wouldn't really, I live in San Francisco, you wouldn't really be living here if that was like your vibe. So that helps. That I can imagine for someone that lives in a area that's a bit more mixed or a bit more like right leaning, how that could be very difficult. So I think, yeah, just being upfront and just keeping it at the forefront of your mind to get it out of the way in any way like that you can. Vet them ASAP. No shame in it.
And also, I feel like it's helpful to remember that it actually is not about politics. Like, yes, it's what we're talking about, but it's about values. So just like the values you're looking for in someone is, do you want to have kids? Where do you want to live? What do you see your future looking like? What do you value most in life? Do you value time with family? Like all of those things that you're normally looking for, this is the same thing. It's values. It's finding someone that aligns with you and what you want. You know, when someone says, I don't want to date someone who doesn't believe in my fundamental rights, that's not like divisive. That's not being difficult. That's fucking self-respect. You're literally asking, do you acknowledge that I deserve rights? That is a baseline. That's not a bold political statement. That's not an unfair ask. So just remember that, like, I think when we talk about, oh, it's impolite or it's uncomfortable to be political, or we should be able to have different opinions and all get along, this is a different world. This is not politics. This is about values. And this is about like how we care about other people and human rights. So it is 1000% fair for you to lead with that, knowing that that's important to you.
I could not have said that better. I 100% agree. Look at it through a lens of like, you're not talking politics. You're just talking, is this a human being that I align with long term? And I encourage anybody that is listening to this right now and has kind of thought like, oh, I don't need to align with, assuming that you're a woman who's dating men, I don't need to align with them politically. I'm doing quotes with my fingers. People can't see that. But like, I don't need to align with them politically on everything. I encourage you to sit and kind of peel back all of the layers of that and really boil it down to not necessarily thinking about bills and laws that are getting passed, but more just like how those are affecting people that are probably your neighbors or people in your life or people that you work with. And I think when you really sit with that for a while, it'll become more clear that aligning politically is not just a matter of, I voted for this person, I voted for this person, we don't need to talk about it. It really is, it will play into your long-term relationship 100%. And it's probably something that you don't want to turn a blind eye to. And when you get really far down the road into something, you'll be like, oh, wow, I wish I would have clocked this earlier.
There's also a very interesting thing that I've seen on TikTok. And like, this is a whole other conversation. I don't even know how deep we want to get into this right now. But like,
oh, I love it. Go.
Because of the rise in like the trad wives thing, women who were like, I don't want to be a driven career badass. I don't like girl bossing. I don't like hustle culture. I just want to be like taken care of and live a soft life, which that's okay. That's great. Like feminism is being able to do that if that's what you want.
Totally.
But I think that there's a lot of people who are like, I want to be taken care of, so I go after these kind of men. And it's not about that. When you look at what they're actually voting for, the bills that are being passed is not about, yay, women get the option to stay home if they want, or women don't have to hustle. That's not what they're voting for. What they're voting for is that you don't have the right, if you have an ectopic pregnancy and you need an abortion to save your life, that you don't get it. Yeah. Like, that's fucking terrifying. That's terrifying. Yeah. So I feel like that didn't really make sense, but I just want to like remove the narrative that I've seen about dating like conservative in a societal way to like really point out what they're actually voting for.
Exactly. No, everything you just said completely makes sense. I think that people equate being taken care of and just kind of wanting to maybe play more of like a stay-at-home, like quote unquote traditional role. Like you said, that is not a bad thing. Like I have friends in my life who feel that way. Like I totally get it. Girl, you do you. But I think that people equate that with being seen as lesser than their male partner and having to almost obey them in a way. And like that doesn't need to be true. Being your own person with your own autonomy and your own thoughts and are still like powerful in your own ways can coexist with playing a more traditional role at home. If your male partner is the breadwinner or you stay home and raise kids, that's not a bad thing. But like you said, it's everything that comes along with it and how men that are more down to do that tend to fall more conservative. I think that there are men out there who that's not necessarily the case. They're just harder to come by. But yeah, it's important to kind of weigh out the differences of, okay, yes, I would love to maybe live this type of life, or that sort of stay at home lifestyle is more my speed. Like on like your Nara Smith shit where like you're making like homemade gum at 1 p.m. I'm like, I get it. I love that too. Yes. Seems like a really good life. But you have to also sit with yourself and think about, what does this lifestyle typically come with? And is that something that I can sit with and live with? If I did need to get an abortion, or if we had kids and one of our kids is queer, or anything in that realm, it's like you have to think about that as well. It's also just considering like where those roles, more like traditional gender roles, like originated from. They're all rooted in thinking that women are lesser than men. And it doesn't always have to be that way. Like we said, you can totally do what you want and still be your own person, but it's a bit ignorant to not recognize that like it is rooted in the concept that you are serving men. So it's all just being very aware and communicating all of that with your partner. It's like, hey, if you want to, I kind of want to be on more of this trad wife wave or like anything in that realm, but I still want rights and to be like my own like powerful person. That just takes a lot of communication and like very open transparency with your partner. Because girl, oh god, like I have a hard time sitting and listening to people, that women who say like, I believe in a woman's right to choose, but then their husbands or boyfriends or partners or whoever don't feel the same way. I'm like, it always makes me question a little bit. Okay, if you can put up with that. I personally, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I don't know if it matters that much to you if you're willing to put up with it to that extent. So I don't know.
I mean, it's so complex. Like there's so many layers to this, but I think also just circling back to the question of, if the conversation of politics feels uncomfortable to you, I think a really good question that was helpful for me is like, what were your family dynamics like growing up? What did you like about your family dynamics that you want to replicate in your relationship? So like, it's just another way to weed out what someone expects, and kind of, because, you know, people that did not vote for Trump can still be misogynist. They can still have this like really ingrained belief that women are lesser than. We see that all the time.
Yes.
So it's not even just about finding out who you voted for. Obviously, that's like the most important first layer right now. We're all in defense mode.
Yeah.
But there's also the layer of, how do you see your family dynamics actually turning out? Like, how do you expect your relationship with a woman to really look like? And those are all very fair questions. For example, when I first started dating my fiance, it was the biggest green flag to me, because when I would ask about like his upbringing and stuff, he always talked about how his parents were equal in their business, equal at home. And to me, I'm like, oh, you don't even clock the fact that women have historically been seen as like the person that stays home. Like, that's not even in your radar. That was important to me. Yeah. And so I think you can find out a lot by understanding what their dynamics were growing up, what their family was like, and what they expect in a family dynamic that they want to continue. Mm-hmm. So that's just another conversation that maybe doesn't even have to look political, but it will tell you a lot about their values and what they expect.
Totally. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that there are some baseline questions where it's very like black or white. And once you have an answer to that, cut it off. You're like, okay, do you support Trump? If the answer is yes, girl, run for the hills. Like, absolutely. Like, you identify as like very conservative. Yes, girl, sprint. Other way, absolutely not. But I think that it's a good point to bring up that how somebody was raised, where they were raised, their family dynamics, that plays a huge role in like how people see those things. If you have developed that there is a baseline commonality of your political beliefs, values, all that stuff, but there is a territory where it's more fine to have open dialogue and kind of a meet in the middle situation, and just like have them understand where you're coming from, you're understanding where they're coming from, and being more open to, okay, like, can we meet in the middle? Or like, is there something that you're going to tell me that's really going to open my eyes, or vice versa? Like if you were raised religious or not, or anything like that. Because I've had friends that I've talked to who were raised very differently than I was. And once we kind of get into those conversations, I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. And now I think about things differently, or I've made people think differently about other things, or at least be more understanding of my perspective. And those are also very important to have, is to not just completely X out somebody when it's something that's a little bit more complex, of just like, that's all they've known their entire life. So at least open them up to the way that you're thinking, and they can open you up to that. And if you arrive at a point where you're like, okay, yeah, this isn't going to work, that's totally fine. But there are a lot of scenarios where like you can find a middle ground that doesn't involve like being ignorant or turning a blind eye to something that you just don't agree on. You're like, oh, we're just not going to talk about it. There can be more middle ground as long as the very big umbrellas are aligning in the right ways.
Religion is a perfect example, because there's a lot of times where people are like, that's something I can't compromise on. Like, it's really important to me for the fulfillment of my life, for what I want, to have a partner who has the exact same religion, that we can raise our children in the religion. A lot of people feel that way. But then also there's the people that are like, this is my religion, these are my beliefs. Oh, you have different beliefs. I'm intrigued. I'm interested. Like, I want to learn more. I never thought about it that way. Oh, that actually connects with me. Can we raise our children, if we want kids, in a way that kind of appeals to both of our faiths? And that's something that we almost like created something even more beautiful than I imagined previously. So that's a good example of it. Really, I think is just about the only purpose of having a relationship is for more joy and fulfillment in our life. That's the only reason. So whether there are things that you may be able to change, learn, grow, that helps you be more fulfilled, or if it's something like what we're talking about with politics and values right now, you need someone who shares those values in order to feel as fulfilled and happy as possible in your life. That's what it boils down to. You know, like, that's all you're trying to do, is just find someone who is going to give you the happiest life possible. And I guess that's my thesis statement.
I know we gotta just like keep coming back like to that. You're standing 10 toes down on that statement of like just value, morals, and how they are not separate from politics. Candidly, they never have been, but now just in such an administration that's very blatant about being so controversial and so rooted in hate and oppression, it makes it a lot easier for that to be at the forefront of conversation. Did you watch this newest season of Love is Blind?
I am on like the third episode, but I know there was a conversation about Trump, but I haven't seen it yet, but I'm really excited to watch.
Okay. Yeah. So if you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it for you. There was, I won't say who, and I'll try to be really vague, so I'll give you any crazy spoilers, but there was a couple that seemed very, very compatible. And then they got to a point where religion and kind of social beliefs surrounding LGBTQ rights and came into the question, and that ended up being a big divisive topic for them, because I wouldn't consider him to be outwardly homophobic by any means, but just very much had the stance of like, I attend this church that doesn't believe in LGBT rights, but I just don't really think about it a lot, so it's whatever. And
Interesting.
It was very, very interesting. And she was like, okay, wait, I don't know if I can rock with that.
Did they end up getting married or not?
Do you like want to know?
I want to know.
No, they don't know. And that's like the reason why.
Okay, go off.
And kind of like the whole tangent I went on a little while ago of like, it's really important if it's someone that you want like a serious partnership with, to get into their like family dynamics, like how they were raised, and like, hey, like maybe this is why they think that. That should never be an excuse that someone leans on to not be willing to maybe adapt or change the way that they think. If they just lean so much on like, well, that's just how I was raised and that's how I'm always going to be and I can't change that, that's a huge red flag. Everyone has the ability to change. And I don't think it should be anybody's job to try to change another person. But if they're not receptive to that and they just kind of lean on that as an excuse, that just shows that they don't want to put in the work to change. And that's a whole other conversation. So don't let anyone tell you like, well, that's just how my family is, or like, that's just how life was growing up, or that's just the church I was at, and like, I don't really think about it. It's not an excuse by any means. As a fully functioning adult, everyone has the ability to change and the capacity to understand people in a different way that they maybe did when they were growing up.
I'm sorry. In the year of our Lord, 2025, you have access to like the internet. You can look up anything. You can read any book. If you are not educating yourself, you're the problem. It is not an excuse of this is where I came from, this is what my family thought. It's not an excuse because you have all the exposure in the world that you want at your fingertips. And if someone is not seeking out that education, that is not someone that I would like to commit to. That is not the person I want raising my children.
150%.
If there's anyone that you're going on a date with or that you're dating, do you go through their Instagram follows or TikTok follows to see if they follow any political accounts that don't align?
150%. Yes, I do. If I am able to find someone's social media prior to the date, I am doing like FBI level research. Like, I send it in my group chat. Girls get to digging. Like, find everything on this person. We are like, when you have a board with a bunch of pictures and evidence with like red tape going like across, that is me and my friends. Like, I want to know how tall you actually are. Like, I would love to know what music you listen to. That's just me being nosy. But I definitely look out for who they follow. Are they holding a lot of fish photos on their Instagram? Usually
fishing photos or the naked gym selfies, shirtless.
Yeah, or is that like your entire Instagram landscape? Not to be judgmental, but like maybe not so great. But yeah, I don't think there's any harm in that. When you're putting stuff on the internet, that is public information. Like, there's one photo that maybe gives the vibe a little bit that they could be more conservative leaning. Don't go crazy into that, because I've definitely met people, especially men, who I thought gave a conservative vibe, and then I meet them in real life and we talk, I'm like, oh, you're not. And vice versa. Like, thought they were lib and then they ended up not being. So take it all with a grain of salt. But yeah, if they follow, you know, Trump, Joe Rogan, Charlie Kirk, get out of there. Yeah. That's when you can be like, okay, yeah, I don't mean to meet you. But
if they follow white men for Trump, run.
Yeah. If it's at white men for Trump, report their account.
Report it to the authorities. Totally.
100%.
Yeah. It's so funny because when I was dating back in the day, we used to be stalking potential dates' profiles for like, are they following an ex-girlfriend? What Instagram models are they following? And now you're looking for political accounts. Like, it just, how the world changes.
Oh God, that is like so sickening to think of.
I know. Now I'm like, I don't care if you follow Instagram.
Like, like whatever. Like, you do you. I don't care. Did you vote for Donald?
Like, literally.
We can get into
like bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, literally. Oh my God, that is a really funny comparison. Yeah, no, I don't look at that at all. It's like, are they following a bunch of girls, or like, oh my God, does he still have photos up with his ex? Like, I'll get to that stuff once that initial vetting process is over, without a doubt. Yeah. But like you said, my friends and I definitely are very like politically active. We were all like political science and social justice majors in college. So we take it
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I majored in English, but I minored in law, societies, and justice, because there was a moment where I'm going to go to law school, and then I was like, wait, I don't want to do that. But
badass.
All of my friends, we are very, very cautious. I don't think you're a bad or ignorant person if you don't, but do a little Instagram vetting, be a little bit straightforward, get your questions out there, understand, like we literally keep saying, our thesis statement, that politics and morals and human decency are not two separate entities. I'm not telling you to go crazy, but like most things, it's easier to find the flaws and the deal breakers earlier than later. It's going to save you time.
Be upfront. You want to get married, you want to have kids, and you want someone who is pro-choice. Like,
yeah.
You know, you can be upfront with what you want right away, and that's self-respect, that's self-care. It's not asking too much.
Exactly. Yeah. I also definitely encourage people take the time to sit with yourself and think about what matters to you, and like what social justice movements or anything in that realm mean a lot to you, not considering what a partner or anybody would think. Those type of, we keep saying, quote unquote, like vetting questions will come to you like very naturally. Just do your own research and think about what matters to you, and everything else will kind of fall into place. When I'm reading about any type of issue, if it's centered around like racism, homophobia, xenophobia, any transphobia, you will just know in those moments, this is something that I absolutely need to ask, or like, oh, I'm going to ask this, or this is giving me this vibe. Just like, just know yourself and what is really important to you. And the rest will just kind of fall into place, and you'll just know in your gut what's a compromise and what isn't.
A big goal of mine that I've shared on the podcast before, I'm working on wearing my insides outside, where when I think something or feel something, saying it, showing it, maybe for a while I was like, I mean, even having this conversation, when we started the podcast, I would have been like, oh, I don't want to alienate anyone. I don't want to make anyone feel bad. I want people to like me. And now I've been like, what my insides feel is right matters more. Like I'm feeling more comfortable because I've exercised putting my insides on the outside. Like that's the only way I can explain it. Mm-hmm. So I would also share that mission with anyone listening, and especially with this listener. When it comes to dating, especially, share your insides outside. Don't be so caught up, as I feel like so many people, as we all are with dating, of what do they think of me, and be more aware and care more about showing your insides so that you actually attract the people that you want.
100%. Yeah. It's just more of a thing of putting your best self forward and like what you believe and what matters to you and what's important to you. That will never scare the right person away. And that's why it's so frustrating that we've been made to feel like politics is touchy and too vulnerable to talk about, because it's not. Like, it's absolutely not at all. And if you openly, like you're saying, like wear those insides on your outside and just talk about them candidly, it will not scare the right person away. It will not be too much for somebody. The right person will not be turned off by that.
And will love that and appreciate that. Yeah.
Exactly. All you can control is what you know and what you feel and what you believe. If you take the time to just really educate yourself, which beyond dating, I just think in general, in this political climate, it's very important to do. If you just take the time to really get in touch and really do the research of why it's not just politics and why it is a matter of human decency and honestly life or death for a lot of people, it will just feel a lot more natural and a lot less of this colossal thing for it to come up if you are so sure of how like you personally stand, instead of worrying about like maybe what they think or believe. Yeah.
Period. That's amazing advice. This was amazing. You're the best.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved this conversation a lot.
Such an important conversation.
Yes, totally.
Thank you guys for listening. If you have a question you'd like us to answer on air, DM us at The Everygirl Podcast on Instagram. And I will talk to you on Tuesday with a solo episode. Have a wonderful weekend. Thanks, McKenna.
Thanks. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed the episode. I know I sure did. Please do not forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It really makes a huge difference for our show so we can keep growing and bringing the content that you love. If you want more info, you can find us at The Everygirl Podcast on Instagram or theeverygirlpodcast.com. Talk to you next week.